It's the Prentice Allsup Heating and Air Coach's Corner, fueled by Donut Country and McDonald's on 1019 100.5, 1450 WGNSSports.com and Big G TV.
The Coaches Show is brought to you by Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, TOA, the largest and most comprehensive orthopedic surgery group in Middle Tennessee. Find out more at TOA.com. Danny Brewer, happy to be back with you right now, and I'm joined by the leader of the Bulldogs, Omar Smith. Coach Smith, how are you this morning?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. I'd be better if I had a win last night.
Well, you know, it was always a tough environment there.
Mm-hmm.
You played at Blackman. You know, I know the last couple of weeks, the Friday nights haven't been real good for the Bulldogs.
Right.
You know, you guys have been playing really, really well. And, of course, peaks and valleys is what this season can all be about because it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest thing is we got to understand how important it is to be consistent. And I think, you know, January is tough. There's a lot going on. You know, you're going Tuesday, Friday. Then, of course, like this year, you get that snow that comes in. So now everybody's sitting at home for a week doing nothing. You can't go practice. You can't get shots up. So then you have to go in Thursday, try to get practice plan together, a game plan together. And it's a lot, you know. And, you know, it's not an excuse. You know, everybody has to deal with it. But, you know, the guys that can deal with it the best obviously come out on top.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Everybody has to deal with it. But some people deal with it better than others.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back to just being able to lean on your coaching, your teaching, just continuously doing the things that you've always done right. You know, dealing with teenagers, sometimes you kind of lose that, and you know, trying to get them reeled back in and refocus and just ready to go. So it can be a little difficult, but you know, it's part of the journey, part of the grind. So we'll get there.
Oh, that's what it is. I mean, you're growing young men. That's what you do. So I want to talk about a couple of your kids. Number one, Jan Kinzer. I know against Riverdale last Tuesday, 40 points the kids put up. What a game this kid had.
40 points, no shots outside of the paint. He just, you know, he has a scorer's mentality. Sometimes that can get him in a little bit of trouble, but that was one of those nights where, you know, of course, when you're making shots, you keep shooting them. So he just kept making them, and we keep driving until they stop you.
That's right. Now, last night against Blackman, he didn't really have a good game. Of course, I think got nicked up a little bit, had to come out of the game a couple times with a couple of little nagging injuries and stuff, and never really got untracked.
Yeah, he, you know, and I'll give credit to Blackman for that. You know, one of the things we've preached to him and Caden is like, you're going to be at the top of people's scouting report. So, you know, Coach Workman, Coach Rutland, these guys, they saw the score sheet. They saw you score 40. So they don't want you to score 40 on them. So they're going to have a game plan in place to make sure things are tough for you. So I think the biggest thing is for him to understand that sometimes he's kind of got to, you know, get it to somebody else and let other guys get going, and then the game will come to him eventually.
Well, yeah, I think you're 100% right on that. Of course, I want to talk about the other kid you mentioned, Caden Matthews. He did have a good game last night. He had 14 last night of your 34 points. Yeah. So, I mean, he almost scored half of what you had there. But he's another kid. I know that one of your assistants, Jalen Johnson, has really been in his ear about trying to toughen that kid up because he's long and he's lean, but he's got a really good game, but you feel like he needs to get a little bit tougher.
Get a little tougher, play a little bit lower. That's the biggest thing is getting a good base, play low. You know, people don't understand, and I mean, not that I'm tall, but it's harder for tall people to understand that, you know. And I told him one day, I said, this is going to sound crazy, but being tall sometimes is a disadvantage because you're playing straight up. You don't have any leverage, so you have to learn to get low and get a base and use that strength in your legs to your advantage. So he's working on it. It's just something he's got to keep continuously practicing and getting better at, but he'll get there.
I think one thing last night, of course, when you played Blackman the first time, their post play really was a big factor against you guys. Last night you did a really good job of limiting their scoring in the paint.
Had you told me that we were going to hold Jalen McDonald to 9 points, I would have been very happy about that. He scored 18 on us the first game and just completely took over the game in the second half. And I thought, you know, I have to give props to Corey Daniel. Corey did a great job on him last night. Jalen only hit 2 shots from the field. And Corey's not a big physical kid. I mean, he's 6'5", but he's not a very physical kid. But he took it upon himself to make sure he was going to do that. You know, we had our starting post player, A.J. Wright, who's out. So Corey, you know, stepped up to the challenge, and I commend him for that.
Yeah, AJ, what's going on with him?
he's got a sprained MCL. He could have played last night, but we figured, looking at the standings, it was no point in really risking him playing last night. So we think we'll have him back next Friday. We're just kind of get him some rehab. Had he been able to practice this week because of the snow, we probably would have played him. But he's been sitting around like everybody else, so I didn't want to just throw him out there off of one day of practice and risk anything with him.
Well, there's bigger games ahead, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, tournament sport, and as you get down to the crunch time, you want him to be ready.
Right. I told him, I said, I can sit you for the rest of the year and have you ready for a district tournament, region tournament, which is important. So those things that we're kind of looking at, like, getting him as close to 100% as we possibly can.
Because he gives you a bigger body and he gives you a post presence.
Absolutely. He's more physical, probably – I guess he's the second biggest post in the region. So, he gives us something that a lot of teams don't have. So, like I said, we definitely need him later on.
Let's talk a little bit about your guard play, Coach. Tell me a little bit about your guard play, especially point guard.
Brody Webb is our point guard. Brody's not shooting the ball very well this year. He's played shooting guard most of the time for us. This kid, he hit 6 threes in a quarter in a JV game a couple years ago, so he can shoot it, but because he's having to play point, that's taken away from what he naturally does. But if you look at his stats, he's not turning the ball over. The other night he had 8 against Stewart's Creek. He had 8 assists and one turnover. So he's taking care of the basketball. He's getting the ball to the people that need to get it to go score for us. So I'm very proud of what he's doing in the position that he wasn't originally supposed to be playing coming into this year.
Yeah, because he's doing the job of distributing, because you do have scorers. We talked about with Kinzer and Matthews, you've got some kids who can really score the ball.
Right. Then you got Corey Weathers over there. He's a football guy. He's our best on-ball defender. We put him on the other team's best perimeter player, and he takes it upon himself to do that. And, he can go score a little bit. His numbers have gotten up. He's around about 9 points a game now, so he's giving us a little bit more offense than we had at the beginning of the year. And then at the same time, he's still playing defense and rebounding as well, so he's been huge for us also.
Weathers gives you a toughness, right? The toughness factor.
Very tough kid. Like I say, he plays cornerback, safety, plays wide receiver on the football field. So, he doesn't back down from anybody. He hits the floor, he gets back up. He's going to go down there. He's going to get hit. He's going to keep fighting.
So, Coach, let's talk a little bit about what you got coming up this week.
We go to McGavock on Tuesday. So, we get out of the county, go to Metro. That'd be good for us. Metro refs can kind of let you play a little bit. So, we'll get beat up a little bit and, have to fight through it. And then we'll get back into district play against that team up there on Sam Ridley. They come to see us. And, it was a great game the first time we played them. I expect them to come with that fire again. It's going to be another great game.
So, Laverne, it's always a good game, right? It
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter about the records because, I've been watching Smyrna Laverne games for, since the early 90s here. So, like I said, but always a good game.
Yeah, Coach Greenwood's got those guys playing hard. They're not going to quit. They're not going to back down. So, we're expecting a hard-fought game again. Like I tell the kids, your parents grew up in this rivalry, and you look up in the stands, you see a lot of the legends come back, and they're rooting for you. So you better be ready to go.
Because it was an overtime game, right? Last time against Laverne was an overtime game there at their place. I know they feel like they let it get away, so they've got this chip on their shoulder. Laverne does that is.
I'm sure they do. They did let it get away, and we can also say, well, we were up 10 at half, 12, so we shouldn't have let the game get that close. So both teams can say, hey, this is what should have happened, and so that's the beauty of it. We get to play again, and we can settle it and see who was the real deal.
The rivalry has changed a little bit over the years because, used to be you had a lot of Smyrna residents that went to Laverne, and now it's not that way. But I still think most of these kids know each other, right?
They do, and a lot of respect. Speaking of AJ, like AJ went to Laverne last year, and so we talk about some of the things that they did that made them successful as a program and kind of steal some of that stuff. So that rivalry is still there. It's never going anywhere. I think sometimes I wish our kids kind of understood it a little bit better, but we're preaching it to them and letting them know, like, this is what it is. You better be ready to go. Those kids are going to come in. They want to beat you regardless of their record. No matter what else is going on. If they can beat you, it's going to be a good year for them.
Well, I want to touch on the assistant I mentioned before, Jalen Johnson, because he played at Smyrna. So he's a guy that can kind of communicate to your kids this week about the importance and what all of it means, right? Because he's been a part of it.
Absolutely. We talked to Jalen about it. We let him talk about it. We go pull Coach Drayton in the locker room, let him talk about the rivalry. Coach Caldwell's in the building. We'll let him come talk about it as well. So we get people to come explain it to those guys so they can get an understanding of what it really is.
Yeah, Caldwell and Drayton, they're two guys, like you said, they went to war, wearing the purple and gold and all that stuff. If they had a horse game, who do you think would win?
Well, Coach Caldwell owns the single-season record for threes made, but I've seen him shoot a basketball one time in my 5 years at Smyrna. I'm not sure why he won't shoot anymore. I'm going to issue the challenge right here. I want to see it. We could probably make it happen at halftime of the game Friday, I think.
I want to see it too. I think that Caldwell, God love him, I think that he may have had the record for threes made, but he also maybe had the record for threes taken, So if you shoot a bunch, maybe you make more, right?
It helps when you got a bunch of trees down and everybody's focused on them and you're wide open.
Yeah, because like I said, they're always been good. Okay, so when we think about the importance of the week coming up, like out of district and then district, the district games, I know that the tournament, everybody goes to the region, all that kind of stuff, but it's still important to finish as high as you can in the district.
I think so, and just for your confidence. You don't want to go losing to teams, getting blown out, and then now you got that doubt in your mind when you get to tournament play. You want to be able to go in and say, yeah, we either beat them or we lost, but it was a close competitive game. So it's very important for your mental and for your psyche going forward.
So when you think about the last couple weeks, because they have been a little bit larger in the margin of defeat with Stewart's Creek and Blackman, a little bit of fire in the bellies of your kids over that, you think?
I think so. I think they're going to be ready to go. We had a good talk last night after the game, and guys talked about some things that we need to work on, not just basketball-wise, but just from a maturity standpoint. So I think we're going to see a different team going forward.
Because that's Omar Smith with the Smyrna Bulldogs. If you want to see a real barn burner, you go over at Friday night. Smyrna or Laverne at Smyrna this Friday night. Girls game tips at 6. Coach, we certainly appreciate your time, and we do absolutely wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
The Coaches Show is brought to you by Dr. Automotive, the cure for your car, professional auto repair and maintenance from ASC certified mechanics and master mechanics. Check them out online at autorepairsmyrna.com.